Amex is a high-grade exploration company. We've made a number of discoveries in the province of Quebec, which I'm biased to say is probably the best place to make a gold discovery globally. It's a very mining-friendly jurisdiction, great permitting, great taxation laws. It's really a wonderful place to do mining and exploration work. As you can see in this photo here, we've identified a lot of high-grade gold mineralization on our road access Peron project. And what I'll do today is I'll walk you through a number of these individual zones and deposits and give you an idea of the overall property that we've currently defined, as well as a look at the potential here for additional discoveries on the property, which we think are very potential or very possible in the very near term. I will make forward-looking statements. This whole disclaimer is on our website. So stock is currently trading about $2.70 Canadian. As of May 10th, we have $26 million cash in the bank, so very well financed. We've raised well in excess of $60 million over the past 2.5 years since discovery of what we call the Eastern Gold Zone. On a fully diluted basis, about 100 million shares outstanding, currently 86 million common shares, to give us a market cap of around $225 million. Great shareholder registry. We've had Eric Sprott participating in each of our placements since discovery of the high-grade zone. Commodity Capital, again, a very strong institutional supporter. Management here is very well vested in the story. We've all bought significant quantities of Amex stock, are currently holding about 13%. And we've got Quebec institutions, including some of the larger pension funds as the shareholders here as well. And other institutional shareholdings are sort of growing by the day, as often happens when you develop a story from brand new discovery into a more mature exploration, turning into potentially a development company. So very strong group, strong shareholders, strong share structure, lots of capital in the bank. Team is led by Victor. Victor Cantori is the president and CEO, got involved here in 2017, has built, financed, structured numerous companies through his 20 years of his career. Jacques Trottier is chairman of the board, PhD geologist, previously founded Celadin Exploration. That was grown to about 3 million ounces of gold, eventually acquired for over $600 million Canadian. Pierre Carrier, our COO, has built a few TSX companies through his career. Patrick Moussampa is our newly appointed CFO, based in Montreal. Myself, I'm a geologist, previously with Detour Gold, and then entered into the junior game around 2017. Brian Coates, lead independent director. That was a recent appointment from just a director. Brian was the past president of Osisko Gold Royalties, past CFO of Osisko Mining when they built the Canadian Malartic mine, and also was born and raised in the town of Normatal, in which we operate our business. And Nick Gendron on the board, securities lawyer. Luisa Moreno is a newly appointed board member as of a couple of weeks ago. Dr. Moreno is a physics engineer. She's quite a valuable addition to our team, so we're very happy to have appointed her. Yvonne Gelina is an accountant based in Montreal, and Andre Charek is a real estate entrepreneur based in Montreal. So a very well-rounded group of a dominantly independent board, which is a good thing. Like I mentioned, focused on Quebec, awesome place to explore. This is a cool picture because it shows vehicles. So it's a road access project. Sorry guys, my COVID hair is getting in the way. It's a road access project. It is no helicopters required for the exploration work we do. Year-round access, very, very easy to get to the project. Like I said, you can drive there directly to the town of Normatal in a car from Toronto in about 7 hours. And from there, it's about a 20-25 minute drive to our drill sites. So very, very easily accessed, close to the major mining hubs of Timmins, Kirkland Lake, Rouyn-Noranda, Val-d'Or, and La Belle-sur-Quévillon. So very well situated for mining. We're essentially right in the center of the Abitibi Greenstone Belt. You have the Sunday Lake Fault Zone to the north, hosting Detour Lake, and Wallbridge's Fenelon deposit as well. Casa Berardi hosting the Hecla Casa Berardi mine. We have the Shakobee Deformation Zone here, which we're operating on. Porcupine Dester, followed by the Cadillac Larder Lake Break. Huge mining hubs around all of these major breaks, with the exception of the Shakobee break. And we think that we're working to change that. We hope to have one of these yellow spheres on the Shakobee break very shortly, potentially right around here. Past producing mine, Normatal, is about 10 kilometers to the southeast of us. That went from surface down to over 2.5 kilometers, mined for over 50 years. High metal tenor VMS deposit. The neat thing about that is it shows us that these deposits on this belt have the potential for significant depth extension. And we've now proven that with our drilling on the high grade zone. Big core shack. The great thing about that is during COVID, we've been able to operate at essentially full capacity. We've had 10 drills on site, a full team on site, and we've got a COVID testing set up on our site as well. So we were fortunate to have this big facility, which allowed us to work and operate our business at full capacity throughout this pandemic. Like I said, we also are based in the town of Normatal, so it's very inexpensive to work here. This is a look at the Peron project property geology. We are interested at the moment in this wedge in the center of the screen that we call the Beaupré rhyolite block. It's a sodic rhyolite, different than mostly everything else in the area here, and it seems to be very amenable to hosting gold. We've made a number of discoveries to date. Gratien was the first one to be found, followed by the Central Polymetallic Zone, followed by the Eastern Gold Zone, followed by the Graycat Gold Zone. Over the past few months, we announced 2 high-grade gold discovery holes, this 41 and 210, both of which very high grade. But what's neat about them, and I'll talk about this later as well, is that they are outside of this main corridor where we typically find all of our gold mineralization. You know what? Nobody can see my mouse. Just 1 second, and I'll put on drawing. Here we go. Okay, so Gratien here, Central Polymetallic Zone, Graycat, Eastern Gold Zone, and these 2 zones over here, 41 and 210, are off of the main break, or off of the main area that we've been focused on. So it really opens up this northern portion of the property for additional discoveries. Sorry about that. This is a slide, a series of slides we put together for our AGM a few weeks ago, and I think it's really interesting. It shows us a look at this property from discovery of the Eastern Gold Zone, which again I'll draw right here. So this is year end 2018. This is year end 2019. You can see that we've on this lower slide here. Sorry, this is. This lower side, we've added a lot of high-grade hits to our Eastern Gold Zone. And for reference, all of these pink dots are better than 20 grams. We've added to the Gratien, in particular this upper Gratien and the western extension over here. So you'll see these grow. And you'll also see this Graycat Gold Zone grow significantly. You'll see a lot of gold being identified on this eastern portion of the Eastern Gold Zone. And in the next slide, you'll see how far down we've drilled on the Eastern Gold Zone over the past year. So there we go. So drilled down to over 1.35 kilometers vertically, significantly expanded the strike length of the high-grade zone, added to Denise, which is just the south of the Eastern Gold Zone, and added a whole lot of high-grade gold elsewhere on the project. So it's fitting to walk through these 3 just to see what we've done over the past years and to show the scope of this project and the high-grade nature of it, not just in the Eastern Gold Zone, but also across the entirety of the project. Taking a look at the Eastern Gold Zone geology itself, we have our high-grade zone, which is this line that goes along here, and Denise Zone, which is to the south in this red blob here. The neat thing about these 2 is you have the high-grade zone, very linear, discrete, simple geometry. It's knife-like, very, very sharp, very high-grade. And then just to the south of it, you have this big body of Denise that comes right up to surface. So what we're envisioning is, as one was exploiting the Denise Zone in an open pit style of mineralization, you'll be also accessing the upper portion of the high-grade zone as well. So we're very, very excited about the prospect of those two coming together. And that's something that we're working on with our consultants to determine a path whereby we can incorporate these two into one single potential open pit style mine. This is a look at the high-grade zone itself. Like I mentioned, we've drilled over 1.35 kilometers vertically on the Eastern Gold Zone. Very, very high grades here. If you take a look at Amex's press releases over the past even year or 2 years, 3 years, we consistently drill very high-grade gold mineralization. It's unique, this high-grade zone. The continuity of this multi-ounce material is something that you don't often see. Within this envelope, I'd say we have like a 99% hit ratio in terms of seeing visible gold. Within the core of the system, identified by those pink portions on the map, let me draw some, such as this pink area here, this core in the center over here, this core over here. We're seeing very, very, very consistent on an individual sample basis, well upwards of 50, 60, 70 grams per ton. Consistently in this system, and that's something that has continued well in excess of 1 kilometer vertically. So it's a very continuous and very rich gold system that we are working to currently drill off into a resource. It's difficult to see here, but you can see it on our most recent press release. We've identified a lot of visible gold in holes that are pending. Obviously, owing to the COVID pandemic, the labs are a little bit slow currently, but we have over 20,000 samples in the lab. Many of them contain visible gold mineralization, so we're very excited to get those back and return the results to the market. Denise is the one just to the south of the high-grade zone. This is very different. Bulk tonnage type mineralization. Numbers, for example, 115 of 1.4 grams. 190 of 1.07 grams of gold, 50 meters of 2.1, 100 of 1. And then what's neat is at depth, we're getting some higher grade stuff. One of our holes includes 7 grams over 32.2 meters. So what we're doing right now is rapidly defining the near surface portion of Denise in order to incorporate it into our maiden resource. We will also continue, as we've done, drilling it to depth and seeing what's happening along strike over to the east as well. And we'll also test in this portion back here on the other side of this mafic intrusion. Metallurgy we've done already. It's been basically perfect, better than 99% recovery using a 3-stage process of gravity flotation cyanide. We've done this simple gravity cyanide test. We got better than 98% recovery of gold, better than 93% recovery of silver. So very, very simple metallurgy. And what's neat about this mineralization is that most of it, in fact, in excess of 70% of the gold was recovered by gravity, which is the cheapest, easiest, most simple way of recovering gold from a deposit. So I was very, very enthused to see that occurring. Taking a look at our Gratien gold zone to the west, this one was discovered, like it says here, well, it doesn't say here, but it was discovered in the late 1990s. Kind of sat on the shelf. There was a bit of work done on it over the years. Once we made our discovery of the high-grade zone, we looked at this again, identified the potential for shoots of high grade within this kilometric gold system. We're quite successful in doing so. As you can see here, high-grade hits were found. 1.5 meters of 67 grams, 4.2 of 17, 5 of 27, 14.5 of 16.5 grams per ton. And this occurs over, like I mentioned, a strike length of 1 kilometer. Our objective here is to define an open pit type resource down to about 200 meters vertically. So we have a little bit of infill drilling to do in and around this area, a little bit down here as well, and in this portion too. But for the most part, it's been nearly sufficiently drilled off to incorporate it into that maiden resource. Graycat Gold Zone. This was a discovery we made in 2019. Disseminated gold mineralization starts right at surface. We've defined it down to about 300 or 400 meters vertically. Great numbers here for an open pit system. 34 of 1.9, 27 of 3.4, 28 of 1.2, 6.5 of 9, and some higher grade stuff, 2.7 of 24 grams per ton. This one, again, what we plan to do, and it's, again, largely infilled. We've got to do a little bit more drilling, for example, in here. But for the most part, it is largely resource ready. We need to do a little bit more drilling along strike. But it's almost ready to be incorporated into that maiden resource. So what we hope to do is incorporate it into an open pittable type resource. And like we've done here, continue chasing high-grade gold at depth. And then I mentioned earlier we made two new discoveries. Hole 210 returned a very high grade 3.9 meters of 58 grams per ton. As well in the same drill hole further down hole, 3 meters of 19. On hole 41, which occurs to the west, 7.3 meters of 22 grams. And just for reference, I'm going to draw on this again. So we have our high grade zone occurring on this plane that basically trends on a little bit north of east. Our 41 zone is over here, 210 zone right over here. What's neat about it is they occur on a structure that is basically parallel to the high grade zone. I'm going to flip to the next page and you'll see why that's exciting and why that's important for additional discoveries on the project. I can't really zoom in this web format, but I'll just do some drawing. So there's our Eastern Gold Zone, high grade zone. And what we're looking for when we're looking at these regional structures that may host gold is we're looking for breaks in the magnetic. So where you have this high pink color, where you want to see it bisected by these structures. So I just drew our high grade zone structure. The 41 zone occurs right here. We have another parallel structure to the west. We have another parallel structure to the west, another parallel structure to the west, another parallel structure to the west, some additional ones further to the east. So there's lots and lots of these secondary structures on the project. We're allocating quite a lot of meters, about 25,000 meters to regional exploration. We are quite confident in our targeting capabilities, as evidenced by those two drill holes that I just discussed. We're also doing a little bit of VMS exploration over the summer. So we're going to do a little bit of base metal exploration as well. So excited about that. It's new for Amex, but certainly a very fertile VMS area with that past producing VMS mine to the east of us. And then in summary here, we've got a great project, lots of potential for additional discoveries on the property, like we say here, of both gold and potentially gold-rich polymetallic VMS systems. Objective that we're working on right now is this. It's paramount. It's to define a maiden resource on the project. We're working towards Q1 of 2022. We've got a number of consultants engaged at the moment doing sort of pre-resource work, working on some geostatistics, and getting a handle on the property, on the mineralization, identifying areas to us that we should sort of tighten up drill spacings or expand over here to add more tons, but basically working towards that resource right now. So you'll see a lot of definition drill holes coming out over the next few months as we work towards that resource estimate. Lots of cash in the bank, good structure, great shareholders. And at that, I will turn it over to the chat period.
Thanks very much, Cuddy. That was a great deep dive. We appreciate all the insight and solid cash position and great structure of a company is always a good thing to hear about. And we have a very busy question and answer period coming up. Well, so let's just lob a few your way and see where it goes. With 10 drills on site, we're curious what Amex is expecting to achieve by the end of the year.
We want to have a database that we can build a resource around. So when you do these resource models, typically you have a cutoff date. and then that data set that you supply to the resource modelers will be what they use to generate your ounces. You can obviously continue drilling past that date, but that's sort of the cutoff for the maiden resource estimate on the project. So we hope to drill a lot of holes with 10 drills on site and hopefully define a very substantial gold deposit.
Okay, thank you for that. Moving forward, there seems to be a lot of focus on the high grade zone. Is that because you expect to see a major portion of the potential resource come from that area?
Yes, and also the fact that there's been like over the past couple of years, I worked on one of these projects, but Detour Lake, Malartic, these huge gold deposits have become sort of the new, I don't know, everyone sort of bases their valuations of companies on the number of ounces in the ground, and somehow the profitability of those ounces doesn't really factor in until they become a mining company. So like you look at Kirkland Lake Gold, they have one of the highest grade projects globally in both Fosterville and Macassa, and they're producing gold for sub $300-400 an ounce. So the money that you make on high grade gold versus low grade gold is it's really something that I think a lot of new investors, especially in the market, don't understand. But it's a significant increase in profitability, sort of every gram or two that you go up in that high grade scale. So for us, it's very important because we think that will be the driver of cash and on the property. So that's why we certainly do a lot more work on that zone.
Great focus. Thank you for that. Ryan is asking, how tightly do you think you'll need to drill the high grade zone to get ounces into either an inferred or an indicated resource category?
So we're currently doing some tighter drilling within the main core. We put out a release last week, or this week actually, focused on very tight drill spacings, about 12.5 meters. We don't need to do that across the whole zone to get those ounces into the indicated category. Looks like we're going to get a significant portion of what we've drilled into that category already. Why we're doing that is to increase confidence because this is such a high grade system. We really want to minimize the effect of that resource cap. And we're very confident that this is continuous. So we have no fear of twinning holes or getting very close to holes because we're confident that we will be able to replicate or exceed or match at least those very high grade hits. So we're doing it basically to increase that cap.
Okay, thank you for that, Kelly. To look specifically at finances, question comes in saying, what are your current all-in drilling costs? Have you seen any cost pressure given the sharp increase in overall demand for drilling services?
Yes and yes. So we loved for quite some time that we were drilling for sort of sub $150 a meter. That was it was one of our selling points actually in our presentation. We're currently drilling for about 220 or so. Drill costs have gone up as we've expanded. It's actually the opposite of economies of scale. When you're a little small company with 1 or 2 drills and a couple geos, it can be a very lax environment. 10 drills, we've got upwards of 80-90 people on site. We've got a nurse on staff that's doing COVID tests for everyone that comes in.
Right.
An exploration manager doing logistics. So your costs, it's funny, actually, the bigger you get, the costs actually go up a little bit, but we're still doing very inexpensive drilling here at about a little over $200 because of our location. Okay,
great to know that. Thank you. Next question would say, how have assay turnaround times been? Are you seeing any improvements?
Yes, they were really bad for a while. We got a huge backlog. We were at one point almost about 3.5-4 months from submission to receipt of assays, which is not it's not a sustainable way to run this kind of business. Thankfully for us, our core is very visual, so we know basically what we have, whether it's low grade, medium grade, very high grade, bonanza grade, based on what we're seeing in the drill core. So we can plan our drilling around that. Obviously, the market wants to see results. They want to see assays. So we have been working diligently with the different labs that we use to speed up that process. And now that COVID restrictions have lessened a wee bit in Quebec, they're now able to have bigger shifts, more staff on site. We are seeing a marked improvement in those return times.
Good, a good comeback out of the pandemic. Appreciate that. A question here on the technical side. A newly discovered 210 gold zone on the Normetal fault intersected 58.25 grams per ton over 3.9. After this discovery, are you dedicating more drilling to that area?
We absolutely are. We've drilled a few follow-up holes. We've announced that we've hit visible gold in one of those follow-up holes. Visually looks interesting for sure. That is one of the areas that we are waiting on with a huge return time for assays. So we've done follow-up drilling. Exploration is different than definition drilling, where we really need those assays to define our program. So once we receive those assays, we'll go back and start drilling again there, because we are very excited about that secondary fault that I was talking about.
Right, anticipation. Very good. Thank you for that. Dietmar writes a question. What is the catalyst, would you say, over the next 2 years?
Number one, maiden resource. So in the interim, there will be a lot of drill results, but certainly the maiden resource is our number one catalyst that we're working towards. Another smaller one is we'll do additional metallurgy on the project to get a good understanding of all of the zones, not just the high-grade zone. Following a maiden resource, we expect that we'll complete economic studies, and I guess those would be the major ones over the next 2 years.
Okay, good to know. Looking forward, can you give us some forecasts here, Kelly? What is the goal for management? Develop or divest?
We're super aligned with shareholders here, Mark. We've seen too many companies sort of turn down offers and not even present them to shareholders. So if something attractive comes across, we'll certainly present it to the market. And as major shareholders as we are, we'll certainly vote alongside, either in favor or against anything. We really just honestly want to make money for everyone here. We're not in it for the discovery, in it for the advancement of the project. We're not in it for 10 years of salaries. So really, whatever works out best, we're happy to do a deal if it's very attractive. Otherwise, we're happy to start developing, and we'll add some engineers to our team and really work towards that going forward. So that's sort of a terrible non-answer, but
I get the detail. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. A question comes in asking, can you compare the Amex Peron projects to other well-known deposits?
Yes, of course. One of my favorites is actually the Roxgold Yaramoka project in Burkina Faso, which is kind of way around the world, but it's very, very similar in terms of geometry, in terms of grade, in terms of simplicity of mineralization. Looking a bit closer to home, in a geological context, the Osisko's Windfall project potentially is one that could match. Those would be my two main comps, I think, at this moment.
Great, thank you for that. We often like to tap into the team structure within the company, and you've shared some details, but I'd love to go for the question, who are the visionaries within the company, the real strong eyes forward, leading the charge? If you give us a couple of examples of some of your top MVPs inside the company, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. It's a very, very humble brag question. Yes, Mark. No, obviously Victor Cantori got involved here. Stock, since he's joined, has gone from sort of sub 5 cents to better than $4 at one point. So certainly a very top-notch CEO. Jacques Trottier, chairman of the board, has always had the vision here that we're going to have in mind on this project. He's been sort of obliquely involved in this property since the late 90s. Wow. So he's always said there is a significant amount of gold on this project. Haven't found it yet. I do a lot of work here. We've got a really great geological team on site. They're run by a consulting company called Laurentia Exploration, and they're doing a lot of the drill hole planning, operation, etc. So we've got and Danielle Turgeon, we've got a great manager up on site that's managing a humongous drilling program. So I'd say we're a pretty tight knit team here, Mark. We're all we're in it together. We're working hard to develop something that we think will be quite significant.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the word. In terms of the jurisdiction, just curious from your perspective, we know Quebec is often held up as a great jurisdiction to work in. Just a health check, if you could, Kelly, on permits, water, et cetera, drilling. Where's the company at when it comes to the overall health status there?
Strong. So I always give this example about Quebec. So 2019, we spent $6 million in exploration. We used hard dollars instead of Canadian flow-through dollars. We got a check back from the government for about $1.6 million in the form of an exploration rebate. So they are very, very, very pro-mining. Permitting process is very straightforward. There's a set time limit that you basically will receive your permit or won't receive your permit. For us, it's always been we have obviously received our exploration permits. For the Peron project in particular, we're lucky in that there are no significant waterways on the project. There are no significant lakes. There are sort of ponds and swamps every once in a while, but for the most part, it's a very dry property. We've got relationships with our First Nations communities in the area. That's the Picogan. They're very business-minded, a very business-minded group. So we've got, I think we've got all the boxes sort of ticked off, and it's, for me, it's the easiest place I've ever worked. Obviously, for my accent, I'm not a native to Quebec, but it's certainly a really great place. It's one of the best places I've ever worked, for sure.
Great to hear that. You brought up First Nations. One of my questions was about to lead into the area of environmental, working with communities. How do you integrate a company such as yourself into this space? How has that gone for you overall for the journey?
Well, it's really, honestly, it's difficult in the in the exploration stage. It's difficult because it's a very specialized. It's really just geologists that are driving everything. So certainly happy to hire anyone that's an exploration geologist. But as we work towards advancing the property, that's like I worked at Detour Lake, which was potentially one of Canada's biggest gold mines.
Yes.
And that one was, it was neat. So I was there at the very early exploration stage at the beginning. And then as it advanced, it was very much a community-driven project. There was a huge amount of community employees. And that's sort of when that really opens up in terms of employment, is in the build-up and the mining stage. But yeah, we've got a good relationship with the different groups around us, for sure.
Great to hear that. Thank you. Another viewer is topping in here with a question. Do you think there's a VMS deposit on your land? Star Peak neighbor, as a neighbor, looks very promising. Any thoughts on that?
Hey, I'm always hopeful. I'm an exploration guy. So we've got some really great rocks. We've got the same horizon as the past producing Normantel mine, which is where Star Peak is exploring around. So that same fertile package runs up. You know what? I can pull it up. Can you still see my screen, Mark?
Absolutely.
So I go to geology here. Essentially, that Star Peak mineralization occurs just to the north of this Normantel fault. It basically straddles it.
Okay.
I think you can even see it better on here. No, you can't. We obviously have lots of geology maps, but they're not in this presentation. But basically, just along this northern fault is where Star Peak's system would occur. It actually features around here. And we've flown a property-wide VTEM survey, so a high-resolution EM survey. And we've identified a number of anomalies to the south, to the north, within. And like I said, we're doing our first VMS campaign probably in 15 years on this property. So really excited about it. We've been planning it for quite some time, and now that the metals market's finally turned around in terms of base metals, we think that it's an attractive time to be looking for sort of what we would think would be sort of a sweetener to our gold system here.
Yes.
So really, really excited about that. Started drilling, seeing some interesting stuff. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, good to know that. I know with exploration, we're talking about the early stage on the spectrum overall in the industry, but can we take a moment to look, say 3 to 5 years, a little further down the road? Any thoughts from you, Kelly, on where you hope and see things going?
That's a long time for the exploration game, Mark. We will. It's sort of the actual mining. The mine building process takes quite some time. It seems like it can just go so quickly from discovery into being a mine. Typically, it takes about 10 years for that to happen. So 3 to 5 years from now, we'll probably be working towards, if all goes as we're expecting it to or hoping it to, working towards building that mine. I don't think it will be built. Potentially there would be a bulk sample happening or bulk sampling in process, but yeah, it's a multi-year process to get underground for the first time, and let alone commercially mining.
Understood.
Working towards that.
Okay. Anything else, Kelly, you'd like to share that's come to mind? I'd like to leave an open door before we wind things down. Other topics or key story points you want to share?
No, I think it was a fun chat. I liked this Q&A especially. It was really cool. I thank everyone for listening, and keep your eyes out. We've got lots of drills on the go. Our turnaround time is improving, so we'll have lots of news to come over the next several months. So keep it on your watch list, and thanks for your time, everyone.